Now, to be honest, I guess you can tell me if this is news or if it's like anti-news, or I don't know exactly, because about a year ago, there were some rumors that Beckett was going to be changing its grading scale. And immediately they kind of reversed course on the rollout of the marketing. I don't remember if it was, I think that there was something with, they came out with a new label as well. They had actually kind of a tumultuous, last year, to be honest, with, a lot of, I don't know, I guess you could call them marketing mistakes or just mistakes in general, or stuff that they came out with that wasn't fully cooked. And then, with the grading stuff, I think from what I heard, just based on people talking about it, I don't fully remember exactly what Beckett's plans were here. But apparently there was something where they were going to change the 9.5s to 10s or something like that. And I saw Jeff Wilson talking about it, and that's really where sort of my opinion on this is stemmed from. He was saying that he thought that they should have changed, and that was the reason why they were losing customers and all the stuff along these lines, that, they should be switching all the 9.5s to 10s and stuff like that. But it's I don't know. I mean, I don't think that's really where Beckett should be focusing some of their attention, if I'm going to be completely honest. I just think if you look at Beckett overall, they're not a base card grading company. I think if that's that, in my opinion, that's one way I would put it. I would consider them much more of a RPAs or autographs or patches. And if there is a downtick, which this is something that I don't know where you could pull. I know that GemRate probably has this data somewhere, but I think I would be interested to know from Beckett's perspective what type of effect the lack of rookie RPAs, or R stands for rookie, but the lack of RPAs in Panini products this year, really, I wonder how much of that had an effect on Beckett's rollouts, Beckett's products, because, like I said, if you're Beckett, you probably are assuming, granted, there's probably 2 to 3 quarterbacks maybe that are going to come out of the draft, and they're going to have rookie cards, and people are going to be excited for their cards. On a high year, you might have 4 to 5 potentially, but let's just say 2 to 3. And in this scenario, you did have 3 rookies who were pretty exciting, but they were Topps exclusive, so they didn't have any RPAs. Where Beckett, that in my opinion has to be a pretty high percentage of their cards that they're getting graded, like the National Treasures RPAs and just, any type of RPA on any product. For Panini, they don't really care that they don't, and this is the weird thing, they don't necessarily care that they don't have the RPAs, because they already pre-sold all these products, and I'm sure they probably sold out. They probably sold out of all of the products that would have had RPAs in there. I'm hoping at lesser pricing. I don't know necessarily. I'm hoping that people got National Treasures at a lower price, because there's no, the 3 top quarterbacks aren't going to have RPAs. And then the one quarterback that did, which was Anthony Richardson, he has a controversy. He potentially may not have been signing his cards. So, Panini is in quite of a predicament here. And then same with Beckett as well. I think that would put Beckett into quite a predicament, because they're in charge of authenticating the autographs. So, if there's an issue with Anthony Richardson and he's the only quarterback, so that's 4 quarterbacks right there in this year's draft that people probably aren't, so the Levis, Shroud, and Bryce Young, there just aren't any RPAs. With Anthony Richardson, there are RPAs, but there may be some controversy with the autographs. So I would be really, really interested to know how that has affected Beckett's business and how it has affected sort of their plans for business as well. And I wonder if maybe they looked at it and said, the changing of the grading scale, I really actually think is sort of irrelevant for their business, because I've talked about PSA potentially switching their grading scale, but that would be to change it based on the years. And this year would be the last year that they grade under a certain grading scale. And I know that they do, I'm assuming they do it similarly with PSA, where they have the same sort of standards across all cards. I'm not 100% sure if that should be the case anymore because of how well, the quality of cards nowadays is so much better than it was before. That's why you see, vintage baseball has, most of those rookies have, 1 to 5 PSA 10s. It's really such a small number where it's if you look at, I don't know, you look at Acuna or you look at anybody else and they have upwards of 10 to 15,000, PSA 10s. If you look at Acuna, I think that's where his number is sitting at potentially. So the potential grading scale for Beckett, I don't necessarily think that customers would be flocking to Beckett if they were to change their grading scale. I actually think that it being a little bit harder helps Beckett because people look at it and say, well, if you're going to grade my card a little bit more stringently, I don't think that's a word, but more harder, that a high grade is going to mean more on those cards. And I don't think that they should be switching the scale of those cards from, a 10, basically to make it, I think, at least from, like I said, some of the discourse that I saw online, this is what I think they were trying to do. Basically, they were trying to say that they were going to switch the PSA, their PSA 10, which is their BGS 9.5, which people don't view it the same way, but for years, it was basically the same, which I don't know if that was because people hadn't caught up to Beckett potentially, or what the reason was there, or if this was something that was inevitable that was going to happen all along. But the BGS 9.5 versus the PSA 10 lost a significant amount of value if you really look at it, because at one point they were very close. The PSA 10, the BGS 9.5, they were very close in value, which I think they should have been probably. But for Beckett to just decide to switch and to go, now we want the Beckett BGS 10 to equal the PSA 10, and for the 9.5s to really not be as existent. I don't think that's exactly what I'm trying to say. In as importance, again, I don't think that's another. I don't think I'm saying it correctly. They want their grades to mean more, basically more significance. And I don't think that they get that from a change in their potential grading scale, if I'm going to be honest. And I don't really know what they can do here. That's sort of the other interesting piece of this, is I wish there was some sort of magic fix-all, but really, Beckett has sort of, I don't know, their business model isn't conducive to what I think how PSA does it. And I think that they run I would imagine if you were to look at their books, if you were to look at behind the scenes of their books, that there is going to be more, there's going to be more RPAs. There's a higher percentage of cards that are graded by Beckett that they consider, well, obviously if they're doing it, they're considering a profit or whatever, but their revenue, a significant portion of their grading revenue comes from RPAs. So I don't know if they really need to just lean into it or what exactly they need to do, but at least for the time being, it looks like they are not going to be changing anything having to do with the grading scale they currently have. Early on this week, Topps has done, there's two things I'm going to talk about on this podcast that Topps has done this week that I think is cool. The first thing that I've seen some pushback on this on Twitter. Again, I don't know. Sometimes I guess I do form opinions based on what people don't like on Twitter, if I'm going to be completely honest, because it almost seems I don't know if I can put a percentage on how often people are mad about something that actually, first of all, is cool, and second of all, isn't that big of a deal, so just relax. But if you were on social media or you watching the news at all yesterday, you probably heard about the eclipse. I think that was probably the news story of the day. It didn't really affect me too much, I guess. Without it really covering most of the side, I'm not even going to get into the eclipse. But Topps came out with an Eclipse card, which I think is a cool card. I mean, whatever. Like, if you don't, this is the thing that I don't really understand with some people. It's like, if you don't like the card, don't buy it, right? Like, seems pretty straightforward. Now, I get when it comes to content creation, I mean, I'm sure there's tons of stuff that I talk about that I don't like, that I don't buy, that I don't know if my opinion necessarily affects the broader conversation around certain things. But it's like, this card is fine. And I actually think Topps should potentially figure out how to expand the non-sports things that happen during I'm trying to think of how to explain this. They should try and expand the non-sports events. I guess maybe I think that's probably what it is. The events that happen, throughout just randomly, that Topps could expand upon to come out with more, cards that are more pop culturally relevant, which obviously comes down to licensing. And with the Eclipse, there's no, you don't have to work with a third party to get their approval to use. You don't have to get their approval to use the Eclipse, I don't think. I mean, I can't imagine anyone owns the IP of the Eclipse, right? So, it probably makes things a little bit easier if you are doing something on an inanimate object. But I don't know, figuring out a way to maybe do something with the Super Bowl, I think that would be kind of cool. Like, figuring out some sort of thing that they can do for any of these events where they don't have the licensing right now, but they will. And I don't think it's necessarily starting a relationship with the leagues or whatever, because they already are going to have they're already going to have the licenses eventually. But it's more just figuring out a way that they can come out with more cards like this. And again, if you're talking about the Super Bowl, that's within sports. Outside of sports, I don't really necessarily know what types of things you would make cards of. I mean, the Eclipse is cool. I don't know. And I guess maybe sometimes when stuff's in the news, it's not exactly positive. So maybe that's where you want to avoid it. And the Eclipse is kind of just, it's harmless fun. It's a harmless thing. The other thing that Topps did early this week that I really liked was they tweeted out the release schedule for this week. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying, if they do this week and then they don't do it next week, that's bad, in my opinion. I think it's lazy. I think I've talked about this on other episodes where the knowledge of cards the responsibility of, how do I want to word this? The responsibility of knowledge sharing of cards needs to start at the highest level. It needs to start with Topps and Panini and Upper Deck. Like, they need to be the one to explain certain things, or, do something like this where they're doing the full release calendar for the week. Like, they need to be responsible for putting out this information, in my opinion. I think they have gotten better. I think that obviously you can find this information on their websites. Like, you can go to Beckett, I believe, has a release calendar. Check out my cards. No, not check out my cards. Cardboard Connection. I believe they also have a release calendar. But I think if every week you were to update this, if you're Topps and you were to say what are the important releases that you're coming out with this week, that's going to be cool. I think that's a good idea for, the knowledge, like I said, the knowledge transfer. I don't know if that's exactly it, but the information of what the products that are coming out should be, or just in general, just, whatever it is. This stuff should be coming from the top. Now, I don't know. They kind of did it out of order a little bit here, where they did Wednesday, Friday, Wednesday, Thursday, every day. I don't know. Maybe they need to rework this a little bit. But like I said, they came out with the big releases this week. So we got Heritage Baseball Wednesday. Then you got Topps Champions League Flagship. So I don't exactly know what that is. From the looks of it, it's just going to be I guess it's just going to be a flagship soccer set, like similar to baseball, where, down the road, there'll probably be a Topps Chrome set, which in the past I've really only seen with Champions League. There's only been the Topps Chrome sets. There hasn't been many flagship sets, which I guess maybe we'll see if flagship is going to be Chrome or not. I don't think so, but I guess maybe it will. And then with the return of the MLB, we've got the Living set, which comes out it looks like it's saying it's coming out every Wednesday. Then Throwback Thursday, and then, throughout every day it's saying Topps Now. And then, like I said, today, in this tweet that they came out with, it said the Eclipse card. And then it said this weekly tweet is your brand new tool for never miss future releases. Bookmark this post, follow Topps for never miss future release again. Yeah, it's like, make sure they do this again, Topps. Like, this is a good idea, and Topps, I think, needs to be more involved in in providing knowledge to cards. Which I think they have like a content website. I think it's called like Rip It, maybe, which I think that's good. They put articles about, different cards, and they do some knowledge, giving out information on there. So I think, like I said, it should start at the top, which I don't think it does currently, if I'm going to be honest. I think we're still in an era where it's content aggregation, where it's, information is put out in, press releases, and it's kind of put in not really fine prints, but it's put out with, Topps will come out with their checklists, and then people will kind of decipher the information, which I think in some senses is good, but I think that there also needs to be an easy way for someone to jump into sports cards and kind of have at least a general understanding of the market, of the industry. I would say when I was getting back into cards back in like 2018, it really took me probably 2 or 3 years to fully kind of even have a little bit of a grasp on the market, which I still think I'm learning new stuff every single day. But like I said, I was learning that stuff because I was diving into some of those things, into the data, into looking at, the checklists, and into looking at articles that were written about certain things that, Topps and Panini never really came out with, even PSA. Like I said, I think that the information is going to be extremely important for cards, for people learning how to get into cards. And, if you're a content creator, that's obviously, I think that should be your number one kind of thing that you want to do, because that's, in my opinion, that's what I try to do that's what I try to do the most of, is at least showing people how to learn about cards. But I think it realistically should start at the top, and I think that this is a good start for Topps. All right, so I know on this week's episode so far, there's been a lot of talk about what Topps has been doing, and it realistically is just because with baseball season going on, it's really, I think, if I had to guess, Topps probably has a lot locked in right now in terms of people who are working. Summertime is like go time for Topps, if I had to guess. I mean, it's not even really the summer yet. It's really just the beginning of the season. But with the beginning of the season comes the start of all of the baseball products that are going to be coming out this year. And with that said, that's why you're kind of seeing a lot of Topps related episodes. Like, I don't necessarily know what we're going to talk about for the day after, or for Thursday and Friday yet, but I don't know, maybe it's going to be Topps, maybe it's not. But on this episode, something that I didn't realize that Topps did, actually, and maybe this was because the cards just started getting sent out like this. Sometimes this happens when products are released and I don't really realize what either I don't realize what something is, or it's because it was, with print on demand, sometimes they don't come out with what the thing is, or they usually come out with what the design of it is, but when more people start ordering it, and I think in this case this is what they did. So LeBron broke the all-time scoring record, became, I think, the first player to score 40,000 points. So that actually would have been different then. So this actually is more recently. This card is more recent than I thought. Either way, it was being sold in March. Yeah, actually that's right. I remember looking at the card on Topps.com, and it was sold for like a 2 or 3 day span in March, like the second or third week of March, when probably when LeBron broke the 40,000 number. They came out with some pretty cool LeBron cards, some Topps Now cards, and now that the cards are starting to get sent out, we are starting to also now see that there are actually there's actually variations, or there's a variation. Now it's basically a remake of LeBron's rookie card, where I don't know if they I don't know if this was an artist rendition of it, or if they like had this has to be some sort of artist rendition, or they had some person set up looking like this, and then they just used the image of the person. Because what I'm looking at is they had two different designs. There was the regular design, which was like LeBron holding, which this was obviously, this one was obviously a artistic, it was cartoonized. I don't think that's the word, but I think using that word, you probably know what I mean. But so, and he had like the hands over his head, like the crown, and then it said 40,000 points. Again, I think a very good job. I actually do have to give Topps a lot of credit here. Whoever their designers are, I have to give them a lot of credit this past year. They have really done a phenomenal job with the unlicensed products, or the unlicensed cards that they've been coming out with. We've been seeing tons of Wembanyama cards because they have that license. We saw a few different CJ Stroud cards when he was breaking some of the rookie records, and they were using images and they were designing the cards in a way that they wouldn't have to worry about the licensing, because they photoshopped the logos, but they did a good job kind of working around what they had. And I don't know necessarily if this is something that Panini will ever try and adopt realistically, because at this point, I don't know. I don't think Panini is. I don't know. I really do. I guess I hate to say it, but I don't think Panini is that much. I don't know how much longer they're going to be really sticking around here, and maybe that's a little bit cynical. Maybe that's a little pessimistic. I just see the moves that they're making, and it doesn't really seem like they're trying to really counteract all the stuff that Topps is doing, and really kind of like Topps is kind of like, there's that celebration that happens when somebody dunks on somebody and they put their hand down to the ground. They're like too small. It's like that's basically what Topps is doing right now with Panini, if I'm going to be completely honest, with the way that they have taken, they got LeBron. I mean, that's one thing. They got Wembanyama to that exclusive. They got all those quarterbacks, including CJ Stroud, to the exclusive. So, like I said, one of the things that Topps, I think, has done a really good job at this year, or whoever their designer is, has done a really good job at making cards that are unlicensed, but being able to include details and include stuff within the jerseys where, I don't know, if I'm going to be honest, with baseball and Panini, those cards are just horrible. Those are just not good cards, really. I guess it's unfortunate because it's it's one of their sports they come out with, but they really I just don't like those cards whatsoever. So in my opinion, those are always a pass. Like even if it's the last thing on the shelf at like a Walmart or Target, it's like I would rather just look online and spend $20-$30 on a card rather than buying any of those cards. But the variations now that we're seeing for this LeBron card, like I said, it's a remake of that 2003 Topps rookie card that LeBron had with him. Again, I think it's a artist rendition. I don't know if the face of this card, the face of the card, I don't know. I'm looking at the card. It looks like it could be drawn. I don't think so. I think the LeBron face, probably isn't drawn. But also, like with this card, you don't really have to worry about any jerseys or anything, because he was wearing that white suit. So it's a remake. They remade it. And maybe I buried a little bit here, and I didn't exactly explain the card fully. But he is wearing that same white suit that he wore during his draft when he got drafted. And like I said, it's just a complete. I say copy, but it's not in a bad way. But it's just a complete copy from his original Topps rookie card, which I really like. So, what does this mean for Topps? I think that this was maybe not a card that they had planned, that maybe after the fact they saw how many of the cards got bought, and maybe they said, well, we'll add this in here. Or it could just, again, I don't know, it could just be something where they decided that they were going to put the variations in there from the very beginning, and it really just came down to like how many cards were going to get purchased anyways, because I think there are autos, if I saw it correctly, maybe a few. I don't know because I can't actually, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe there weren't any autos, because it seems like or maybe there was, because I actually am not 100% sure if there were autos in this set or if there weren't. I know that there were variations, like different color variations and numbered variations. So if you're on the lookout for some of those, you'll be able to find variations of this card. Now the cards, like I said, they started to hit eBay, and these are supposed to be short prints. Now, I guess it really is up for interpretation how you determine what a short print. And I'm using air quotations as I'm talking about a short print, because like if you go to eBay right now, there's like 4 or 5 of these short prints on eBay right now. Like in my opinion, like a short print, there should be that many made potentially of the whole card. Like there shouldn't be more than 4 or 5 produced, and I guess it all does depend on how many sets there are, how many cards are produced overall. But I just think that Topps, in a way, over the past, and this is maybe a criticism of Topps in my opinion, they have taken the short print, and they really have kind of changed the interpretation of what it really means, if I'm going to be completely honest. It feels like in every product there are tons of short prints. I mean, even so that I believe in last year's Topps, and I think in this year's as well, they even made the short print, like you used to only be able to see it on the, like the numbers, like the serial number on the back of the card was different, for the base card versus the short print. Now I'm pretty sure it says short print on the back of the card, if I'm not mistaken. I know that they had done that with Heritage, which is, again, something that I really liked, making it easy for collectors to see if they have a short print, because these short prints are really where you're going to be seeing a lot of the value in any of these products if you're pulling a short print, because just overall, the cards are, if you're buying a pack or you're buying a box of cards, nowadays, like I said, there is a bit more of a struggle in making the money back from what you're paying, which I think that's good and bad, because I think on one hand it's good because that sort of gets back to the root of sports cards and collecting, like from I don't even know when to really you could go back to, but it's like the value of the card should almost be an afterthought in a way. And it's also bad because I still think that sports cards is it's a living, breathing industry that is always changing, and you can enjoy this industry, and if you really want to try and move your money around and not spend a ton, I think it's one of the only industries where you're really able to enjoy a consumer product, but also figure out a way to get the cards that or get cards that are worth money that you can then kind of keep recycling in money and cycling out cards if you want to do cards that way. I guess really it kind of comes down to that. But so if you want one of these LeBron cards, I think the short prints are very cool. And the cards now, they're starting to hit eBay. I think that's probably why I saw a couple people talking about them, because like I said, there were cards that came out in the middle of March. So I guess that does make sense that now we're looking at, a week or two into April at this point, and the cards are starting to hit eBay, which means those cards that were ordered back in the middle of March have been sent out and people are starting to receive them. So Suze, who works over at CGC, she put up, I think I think it's one of the unironic but like interesting. It was posted ironically, but I think that it actually has an interesting concept behind it. So she posted on Twitter. It was basically a picture. Jackson Holiday is going to be, or he has made his Major League debut. First at bat, and on, like, so it's just a picture of the game, and then there's like little arrows pointing towards the things. It's like MLB debut patch, $25,000 or $250,000. Jersey, $25,000. But then the joke is when it comes in, just like $1 million error. This guy's hat, $50. I think, although obviously it was meant to be a joke, because it does feel like a lot of what happens now within sports, you can look at it almost with a dollar value. I think that's one way. Like I said, unironically, that's why I think that this post was one of the ones that I saw today that I was like, oh, I think this actually has a little bit of validity to it, because obviously that debut patch is going to be worth a lot. Now, luckily, that's something that Topps is implementing, so they don't have to presumably, they don't have to buy if it's the cleats or the jersey or the bat. So actually, if you look at it, I think it was actually a pretty smart move by Topps and Fanatics to work together to get these patches on there, because the patches may be worth the most in the cards. But the bat and the jersey and the cleats, I think, like, for the jersey and bat, I think are really that's where I think that there is some value in that, the debut jersey. But actually, now that I'm thinking about it, the debut jersey won't have that debut patch on it. So that I guess maybe that would hurt the value of the jersey. But so I think that's actually, that's an interesting thing that I think somebody should look into. I don't know if is that, like, do these players, like, what happens right after the game with these jerseys? Like, do they just have to give over their jersey to whoever on their team? Probably as a rookie that you probably don't have a choice to. But I'm wondering, like, in theory, was the MLB debut patch a way for Topps and Fanatics to include something like the bat or the jersey? Those things would cost money. So for them to just put the patches on those jerseys, it's probably it doesn't cost them any money, and it probably is making them the most. Like, if they were to try and buy the bat or they were to try and buy the jersey, that's, money that they have to spend to get, and a player like Jackson Holiday, I'm sure, number one overall prospect, number one pick, he's not just Joe Schmo, like he carries probably a premium with some of these things. So, and that's just with one player. If you were to then have to go to, any other player that's making their major league debut and have to make out some sort of deal with them, that's probably pretty tough to really have to work with all of those different players. Getting these debut patches, they can basically, I guess maybe they can pull the patches off the jersey. So maybe that's where maybe the players get to keep their jersey, but the patches get taken off. I guess maybe that's what has to happen. But so if it was a relic, like, for example, if it was a bat or a jersey they wanted to put into a card, like a rookie card, that's, I guess, where you do get into a little bit of the sticky situation where it's like, oh, it's player worn, which is what, Panini does. I think Topps has done it in the past as well. But the player worn, not game worn, like there's no authentication on where the piece of equipment came from, which is one thing that I think that Topps does a good job at, is including, they have those stickers that have I forget exactly how the stickers work, but they have some sort of code on there where you can go to the MLB website and see when the sticker's code was from, so that way you can authenticate the piece of memorabilia that you bought. Topps has in the past used those stickers with the cards on the piece of memorabilia, and I actually think that would be, in a way, in my opinion, I think that actually would probably make the piece more valuable. Like, I think maybe they were all one of ones. I don't know for sure, but I know that I've seen cards with those patches on there, the authentication patch, and it is a I don't know, not really a sore subject within sports cards, but the thought that really a lot of the memorabilia stuff that goes into cards is actually not really worth that much, unfortunately. A lot of the, like, rookie if it has an auto, obviously that's where the value comes in on some of these like rookie patch autographs. That's why I think it adds. But you just look at if it's just a rookie patch, you really have to have some proof that the player actually wore it during their rookie year. And I think we're seeing that less and less when it comes to actual pieces of player worn stuff going into cards, just in general. I think all the companies are really doing it nowadays where they've seen that they can just come out with a product that doesn't have a game worn thing or a game used thing. They can just say it's a piece of memorabilia from the player, like game player worn. So, when they figured out a way to add value for themselves without really taking away much value or really having to put, I guess, much, marketing dollars behind it. I mean, maybe they have to pay MLB for some of the marketing on, maybe there's certain things that Topps and the MLB are splitting somehow. But if they just get to keep the patch and they put the patches on the cards, that's pretty, it's a pretty nice transaction for Topps. Like, I feel like they aren't doing that much. They don't have to worry about the overhead of, if we get a rookie jersey, we have to break it into a bunch of different cards. The patch just goes on the one card. So, like I said, that Suze, I think, unintentionally had one of the best posts today. Maybe intentional, maybe not intentional. She does some great stuff actually on Twitter where she does like a Q&A kind of thing where she asks a question to Twitter. And I think if you're a content creator or if you are just interested in kind of learning about maybe what some of the people who are vocal on social media think about sports cards, those are some good places to go to find some answers for stuff. Just go in and interact there. I think it's definitely a great idea. Like I said, she posted this on Twitter today. I guess that's pretty much it. I mean, usually I have a pretty good exit for these episodes, but if you're listening to this part of the episode, just know that if you're listening to this on Saturday, just know there is going to be an episode coming up Friday, which is where actually I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the eBay Golden deal, because I'm still trying to get more information on it, and I didn't feel like I had enough information to do an episode on it. I didn't want to think we just completely missed it, because we obviously didn't. If you are interested, Danny did an interview with Mike from Junk Wax Heroes, I believe, on YouTube, so go check that out, and they talked about the eBay deal. I'm probably going to be talking about it tomorrow, like I said on the episode, but that's all I've got. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you in the next one. So we have 4 topics, 3 quick topics that, honestly, these could probably be their own episode, which, if nothing really crazy breaks over the weekend, you might be hearing me talk a little bit more about some of this stuff on Monday's episode, maybe even Tuesdays, depending on, like I said, how much news we have. First, so Jackson Holliday makes his debut. Obviously, probably the biggest, he's number one prospect, so obviously it's that's the big news within the hobby world. He made his debut in Boston. I can't believe I didn't even think, me and my buddy were going to go to the game, and then we didn't. We just never made plans, and so I would have gone yesterday or 2 days ago to see his debut, so that would have been pretty cool. Missed it. Obviously, he has got that patch on the jersey, which some people were wondering what this patch was made of, and Topps put out a full video of them taking the patch off the jersey. I guess it's like Velcro, or I don't know exactly. I didn't exactly understand how it stayed on the patch. That didn't make much sense. But either way, they showed a video of them taking the patch off. Pretty easy to take off. It's not like stitched or anything. So based on yesterday's episode where I talked about what they were going to do with the jersey, I would imagine either Jackson Holliday or the Orioles or MLB just will get the jersey now without the patch on it. Still cool. So story number 2 is going to be that Ohtani looks like he is innocent. So this is definitely good news. Cynical people might be like, well, they're just lying. This is not the story that they're telling is not true. I don't know. They did an investigation. They have text messages. They have all this stuff. It says that Ohtani was not guilty, not found, or won't be investigated any further. Turns out that it was $16 million, apparently, that Ohtani, that the guy had stolen from Ohtani. And some people will sit here and say, oh, how do you not know when $16 million is missing? Ohtani is he's not just, an average everyday person. He has been a professional baseball player, like not even just in the MLB. Like he was a professional baseball player in Japan, so he has money, people. He's not looking at his checking accounts. Like he's like, I check my checking account like every day, basically. I would be surprised if he has looked at his checking account, in the past few years, realistically. So this is probably how this money gets stolen. I'm not saying I don't know. Again, also, it's a crime. So it's like, yeah, he was doing other illegal things to try and get around Ohtani knowing that he was taking all this money. Now, the piece of this story that's related to sports cards, other than Ohtani being innocent, is the fact that he was also buying into sports card breaks. Like there was in part of the breakdown of the money that he stole. Apparently he bought like a couple $100,000 worth of sports cards. That's, I don't know, kind of interesting. And I was seeing someone on Twitter was saying, well, the Trout Ohtani, those like that Topps Now card of the World Baseball Classic where they each signed it and then they got it graded by PSA. Somebody was like, this makes much more sense now that that, because Ohtani's interpreter is in the picture with the cards, not in the picture of the card, not in the cards picture, in the picture with the cards that Ohtani and Trout signed and then got graded by PSA. The third story, which is probably the one that I'm going to be talking about on Monday, is Fanatics officially announced pricing and locations and dates for when they're going to be throwing their, card show that they said that they were going to be throwing. Or that they were going to be putting on. I don't know, putting on, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But they put out some information on that type of stuff. Apparently, it's the same weekend as someone was saying the East Coast National, which I know is a show in New York, New Jersey area. Now this, which I wouldn't be surprised if they move it. And this is some of the stuff that I'm gonna learn. I'm gonna do some more research on and talk more probably on Monday. Now, the story that I talked about yesterday, that I said I wanted to look into more, I have. And it's the PSA. Again, it's a little bit confusing if I'm going to be completely honest still. It's Golden was bought by eBay. Again, the headline, I'm just going to read the headline from PSA's website. Collectors, which is the company that owns Golden and owns PSA, enters a commercial agreement, signs deal for acquisition of Golden by eBay, acquisition of eBay, and acquisition of eBay Vault by PSA. So, I don't, like I said, it's still, I think, is a little bit confusing. When all of this stuff kind of comes out, I think more information will come out. They put out like a really nice blog with some good information too on all of this stuff. But I think once things start, moving a little bit quicker, or not moving quicker, but once more information starts coming out, obviously you're going to see what actually is going on and what they're actually doing. And this is a scenario where I don't want to necessarily toot my own horn in the sense that this is sort of what I've been saying that I thought was going to be a realistic path for sports cards, was the, because with these partnerships and stuff along those lines. So PSA buys the eBay vault. Golden also has a vault. So what I think this means is that it's going to be a seamless transition for you to grade your cards and then send them to either of the two vaults, or buy cards from eBay and then from eBay send them directly to PSA. Never have to touch the card. You could buy a card. I think this, because this is what eventually I think will happen. You'll buy a card on eBay. You can send it to Gold. You can send it to PSA to get graded. And then you can put it in either the eBay vault or you can put it in the Golden vault. Which that was something that I guess I was a little bit confused by. That Golden has a vault, so I'm guessing it must be that Collectors is trying to buy customer information. That's really what I think that acquisition probably comes down to. Like, I can't imagine that doesn't come with the territory of what, that doesn't come with the deal of what they're trying to do. So, sorry, back to the point here. You're going to be able to buy a card from eBay, get it graded by PSA, send it to either of the two vaults, and then sell it without ever having to have the card in your possession. I think the streamlined process for Fanatics, and I think this is part of their plan, streamlining the process, I think, is realistically one of the strategies I think that Fanatics is going to try and use to get more people into sports cards. Because I've talked about my origin story within cards on any chance I get. Any podcast, all of these things. And I was playing Madden, playing MLB The Show, buying and selling cards, digital cards, obviously. And I'm like, well, there's got to be a way to do this in real life. And that's when I discovered Check Out My Cards, which Check Out My Cards is already doing this. They have been doing it. So there has to be some sort of political thing here, in my opinion, of why Check Out My Cards has not been, either acquired or has partnered with any other bigger company. Like, I know that they do have a partnership with PSA and eBay, partnerships, not owned or anything, but it's like the database that Check Out My Cards has is so expansive that I don't see why Fanatics, honestly, like, I don't see why Fanatics wouldn't try and get in on these cards, because we are. And I also think we're past the point where companies are not going to acknowledge that other companies exist. I think that Fanatics is probably going to, once they start getting more of these, once they start getting more of the licenses, they're probably just going to start, selling Panini cards. Like, I don't see why they wouldn't be allowed to. Like, and that comes from the standpoint of, like, Fanatics, they're going to have some sort of marketplace. And I don't know if this is maybe a step forward with that said marketplace. But like I said, Check Out My Cards has been doing sort of this already for so long. Like, you can send your cards, you can buy and sell, get cards graded, sell the graded cards, all within Check Out My Cards. So, like, I don't know why they haven't really, because we also seen other companies try and replicate this. StarStock was an example of trying to essentially replicate ComC's business. Which, that's another thing that I think I saw. Like, they changed something where they, like, they're charging people to have their cards stored, which every month they're charging, like, I don't know exactly what it was. But I was seeing people talk about it on Twitter, and it felt something I should mention. If you have cards on StarStock, or you have any money on StarStock, it might be worth looking into taking that stuff off the platform or trying to get the cards, even if you have to wait however long to get your cards. It's probably just smart to just get them. And, honestly, unfortunately, with what has happened sort of with cards, your value of them might not be very high. Like, that's what I noticed when I was, a couple months ago, not a couple months, probably like 6 months ago, a while ago. 6 months probably. I was looking at the platform. I was looking at some of the cards I was buying. Now, granted, I was also in that fantasy football contest, which I took second. I took second in the fantasy football contest that they had on StarStock, which was basically buying and selling cards, and then the person that made the most profit won, like, a Patrick Mahomes back in the day when Patrick Mahomes were like $10K. So it was really actually pretty wild. I won a Christian McCaffrey, which at the time was like $800 or $900. I ended up selling it for like $150, unfortunately. But StarStock, they tried to do it, but whatever. I would go and probably try and get either your money or your cards from them, because they're charging you if you're storing cards with them, apparently. But so, Check Out My Cards. Like I said, they have been doing this for a while, and maybe their platform, you could say, it doesn't look the best. It's not the flashiest, but like their user interface is fairly intuitive in terms of, like, it works. Like, and because I think sometimes when you have companies who try and build this fancy platform, they forget that the platform actually has to work for them to, whether it's, and this is maybe going back to gaming, whether it's, a game is launching, or they're putting on a patch or something, and you see that they put out this great game, but, like, they made a great game, but then they forgot to actually make the game work. Like, so, although Check Out My Cards, like I said, is not the flashiest, they've been doing this. They've been doing they've been doing the platform for quite some time. So for, I don't know if Fanatics or Topps is good. Fanatics. I'm just going to stop. Actually, I'm probably just going to stop saying Topps unless I'm talking about something specific from now on. Whatever, maybe not. But either way, Fanatics is probably going to come in, and they're going to try and build something like Check Out My Cards. Because like I said, their database, their customer list, and that's what this acquisition probably is for. Because, like, really, you look at it and you say, well, what's the point of that? What's the point? That's kind of what I looked at and said, well, why these things exist. Like, why do we need why does Collectors have to own all of them? Or why does, I guess Fanatics in a way, why does Fanatics have to own all of these things? And I think what Fanatics really did here, or I mean, what PSA really did here, was I think that they bought a bunch of customer data. That's realistically what I think the actual point of the sale was. I don't think, like I said, they have Golden, they have a vault. Like, I don't know why they would go out and want to buy another one. Like, they have one already. They don't need another one. So, I mean, that's kind of the big story with Fanatics, or sorry, with PSA and Collectors here. They, eBay now own, which I guess maybe you look at it and say, well, maybe eBay and Golden's vaults are all going to be just combined into one. Because if eBay's buying Golden, again, the actual, I don't know, the actual sale of these things, to me, it doesn't make, I don't know, it really doesn't make like a whole lot of sense. Like, why eBay would want to buy Golden and then why Collectors would want to then partner by the eBay vault. It really just seems like it's a lot of numbers that are moving around that seem like unnecessary to be moving around. But we still are going to see more information come out, and whenever they launch whatever they're going to launch, because I'm sure there's going to be some sort of new platform, whether it's an integration platform or there's some sort of integration, not integration platform. Once they integrate the platforms, there may be some changes that we potentially see. But I don't, again, I think we're going to continue to see, and this is probably the last point I'll make on the show, because we're running a little bit long, and it's just, there were some big stories, and then this is kind of the biggest story from the past couple days. But we saw this, JSA and I think it was CGC were partnering, and they were coming together. Companies that were grown in the pandemic era, I think, are going to continue to combine. Now, Golden and eBay didn't, they were obviously popular before that, but I'm just saying, this industry is still in such a new environment, I guess is one way to put it. It's still in such a new air of it all that we don't really know what the implications of some of the growth that some of these companies did. So we're going to see what will happen with Golden and eBay and Collectors. And, I don't know if eventually one day one company owns everything, but I guess at this point I really wouldn't put it out of the realm of conversation, if I'm going to be honest.